Good afternoon. My name is Erin Colburn. I'm the Pre-Health Advising Coordinator for the College of Health Science here at Boise State University. And it's my pleasure to introduce Sunnie Ewing from Southern College of Optometry in Memphis, Tennessee, to talk a little bit more about her program. And so we will go ahead and get started with that. All right, perfect. What should I do? Shannon's going to do everything for you. Yeah, I'm going to actually see if I can get you so you can move around. And if you want, I can drive for a little bit.
Oh, okay. All right.
All right.
Start.
Go for it.
Okay. Like you said, my name is Sunnie Ewing. I'm the Director of Student Recruitment at Southern College of Optometry. This is my 22nd year at SPO. So I've made many trips to Boise over the years, and I love it every time. So this is our campus right here. We are one of the two optometry programs that is a standalone optometry program, meaning that we only have an optometry degree. We don't have any other degree programs associated with our school. The other school with optometry would be ICO in Chicago. And basically, this is our campus. We do have a building across the street that's an activity center, but other than that, that's pretty much what you're going to see when you come to visit our campus. This is our 90th year. We have been a big part of the overall history of optometry. So just talking a little bit about the profession itself. Since you are new advisors to the profession, I'll talk a little bit more about the next slide, which is going to be about what optometry is. Optometrists are primary care providers for the profession, for basically any healthcare, actually, not just optometry. They're primary care providers. And right now, about 85% of all eye healthcare across the country is actually provided by optometrists. But it's not just eye disease. It's not just which is clear one or two, here's your prescription. They examine, they treat diseases. They're the ones that diagnose a lot of other health conditions too. And the primary vision care is what they primarily are known for. Again, which is clear one or two. There's your prescription, but it's like during those routine eye exams, a lot of things like high blood pressure, diabetes, brain tumors are all diagnosed. So, one of the things about optometry is that it's a profession that is legislated from state to state. So with that in mind, you're going to see variances on what optometrists can do, but for the most part, all those subspecialty areas, all of the primary healthcare, all of that is things that optometrists can do in pretty much every state. It's just going to be talking about laser privileges and injections and things like that that is changing from state to state. The subspecialty areas that were listed there, those are basically all the residency programs that you can find too. So with optometry, the big difference between optometry and ophthalmology is the fact that ophthalmologists go to med school for 4 years and then they find out they get to be an eye doctor. Optometrists for 4 years are in optometry school, knowing they're going to be an optometrist. And it's in that 4 years they're incorporating the clinical education too. So they're seeing patients instead of waiting after they graduate. So you're going to see each of those areas. And as I mentioned, the states legislate what the optometrists can do from state to state. You'll see two different salary scales here. The AOA one is the national information. The review of optometry is more of a regional. I like to use the regional to kind of give you an idea based on the states that are in the southern part, the areas where you're seeing the higher salaries. Those are the states that originally, or not originally, they have had laser privileges for quite a while. And that's important for a couple of reasons. One, it increases what optometrists can do, but also ophthalmology residencies are not increasing, and the aging population and the needs for these services are increasing. So having the opportunity for optometrists to provide those services is going to be important. Right now, there's 11 states that have passed laws allowing optometrists to use lasers. That's a big jump from me talking for the first 15 years of doing this. Nearly 15 years, there was only one state. So over the past 7 years, I think, we've had 10 other states that have passed those laws. There's a lot more trying to pass those. Tennessee is not one of the states that allows for laser privileges yet, but all 23 schools will teach the students how to use lasers. It just depends on where they're going to practice when they graduate. Because Tennessee doesn't have those privileges, we are right. You don't know where Memphis is, we're right there. So we're right where Tennessee, Arkansas, and Mississippi come together. So we're literally 15 minutes from Arkansas and 15 minutes from Mississippi, good places in Mississippi. So there's actually discussion of opening a satellite clinic in those states because they do allow laser privileges. So it would allow our students during their 4th year to have more hands-on experience practicing with patient care that way too. So talking about choosing a school, one of the things I'll point out is there's only 23 schools. And you'll see on the chart that's coming up, it's got a list of all the 23 schools listed there. And they're arranged in order of what their full tuition is. Some schools will have in-state tuition. Some schools will have contract seats. With SDO, we are a private school, so we don't have in-state tuition. But our tuition with fees last year for the first-year students was just over $39,000 per year. What I will point out is that some of the schools actually add additional tuition during the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th year when you have a summer term too. SDO does not. Our tuition is the same regardless if it's 1st, 2nd, or 3rd or 4th year. So you're not going to see that huge increase with the tuition rates. We have one of the larger classes with 136 there. It's usually 130 to 136. So that's going to be our class size. It's not the largest, but we like our class size because it gives these students an opportunity to have 130 plus other eyes to practice on, which is a big help before you're getting to clinic to see patients. A lot of different prescriptions, a lot of different eye conditions too. So that's one factor to look at is the different schools that you have an opportunity. It's not like medicine, dental, pharmacy, where you have multiple schools in every state. You don't even have an optometry school here in Idaho, so you'd have to go out of state. So regardless of which school you would go to, all the prereqs are very similar. And the next slide will show the list of what our prereqs are at SDO, but you want to check with each school to make sure you understand what each school's prereqs are. They're very similar though to all the other health professions. We require a full year of general biology with labs. We will accept zoology, anatomy, physiology, most biological sciences except for botany or ecology can be used to meet that requirement. We also require one course in microbiology with the lab. The only substitute for that is bacteriology with the lab.
We have 2 microbiology courses. There's no problem there.
Good. And usually the schools don't have a problem. It's the students, I don't want to take this class. So that's the requirement. So 1 year of general physics with labs is required. Does not matter because calculus based, it doesn't matter to us what it is. And then 1 year of general chemistry with labs is required. We only require 1 semester of organic chemistry with the lab, but 2 things. One, there's a whole section of organic that's on the OAT, so we do recommend organic too, just prepare. The next thing would be biochem is also a prereq. Do you require organic too for biochem here?
We do not.
Okay. So they will probably say, okay, I don't want to take organic too because nobody loves organic, right? Except the organic professor. So if they don't want to take it, they don't have to. Just remember that there is a whole section of organic on the OAT, so having it can be helpful in that. The only science prereq that does not require a lab for SDO is going to be biochem. And the only course that can be used as a substitute there is molecular biology. And that's not cell and molecular, that's molecular biology. So it's just specific to.
We have 2 biochemistry classes. They should be able to take biochemistry. That's not a problem.
No excuses from here. All right. We also require 1 course in calculus. It does not have to be calculus 1. It can be survey of calculus, business calculus. It cannot be pre-calculus. It cannot be, I think it's California that has a course called short calculus, and short calculus doesn't work. But other than that, pretty much any calculus course will work. We also require 1 course in statistics, which can be from any department. It does not matter to us where it's coming from. And then 1 course in general psychology is required. If they happen to be a psychology major or a psychology minor, they may have additional psychology courses that can fit the social sciences. But we do require a full year of social sciences that if it's not psychology or sociology, it can be history, literature, a lot of different things can meet that requirement. One of the English is the other one. We require a full year of English. We do accept AP credit. So if you have AP credit, you're good there. Does not matter what you major in. We have students, probably about 65 to 70% come from a biology or chemistry, something related to that. But the others come from business, second languages, psychology, music. We have a lot of music majors. So whatever they want to major in, as long as they have a prereq, it's going to be fine with us. So some things for consideration when choosing not only which schools to apply to, but which school you ultimately want to go to. My first thought when I'm talking to a student is, what kind of optometrist do you want to be? Are you more interested in going into research and working for Allergan or Alcon or one of the pharmaceutical companies? Basically, it does a lot of research with it. If that's the case, you want to make sure you're applying to schools that have a good research opportunities for you. So you're networking and making those connections. SBO does have a summer research program. We have the opportunity to do research with faculty, but that's not what we're known for. We are known for our clinical program and making sure our students have a strong clinical education, seeing a variety of different patients. And then in addition to that, sometimes students choose optometry because of a personal experience. Maybe they've had a family member with ocular disease, or maybe they had vision therapy as a child and it helped them. And if that's their interest and they really want to work with patients with that, they want to check with the schools to see what kinds of patient bases they're going to see. Talk a little bit more about ours in a minute, but I will say our largest patient base at SBO is going to be ocular disease. We're in the South. We're very unhealthy. We don't do anything healthy down there. So you're going to see a lot of patients with a lot of ocular disease. And then the next thing, a lot of times students are just focused on getting accepted, and then they're not thinking about what happens if they're accepted at multiple schools. So my suggestion is always to sit down and listen, make a list of questions of what's important to them in choosing the best school, and what things are going to help them not just get accepted, but graduate too. And as you can see, for the past 10 years, 98% of our students that have entered our program have graduated. So we are not a weed out school. We don't want to get everybody in and see who's the strongest at the end. We want to see everybody 4 years later at graduation too. So we have a lot of support programs, tutoring services that are free for our students. We have a big SIB program and a lot of things like that. We also require that they pass part 1 and 2 of national boards. So that's important because you have to pass boards to be able to practice. So we don't want to just get you through. We want to make sure you're practicing when you graduate too. Another thing for us, being a private school, is very important. We do have one of the largest optometric centers in the country, so it's a great learning resource for our students, but even more so, a great revenue resource, because we are a private school. We don't have the state of Tennessee dictating our budget or tuition rates. So we're able to keep all of the tuition rates as low as possible because we have that revenue coming back in through the Eye Center too. So when the students do get into the Eye Center, they can expect to see anywhere between 2,600 and 2,900 patient encounters by the time they graduate. And it's going to vary based on a few things during their 4th year. Their clinical education, as I mentioned earlier, starts when they're in their 1st year doing labs, but when they're actually start seeing real patients, it's going to be during their 2nd year. We have contracts with all the city schools, so they go out into the school districts and do school screenings and see the kids and bring them back to the Eye Center if they need advanced procedures. And then we also have some programs. We're very driven by service at SBO, so there's a service element that's required to even graduate. And one of the things that we offer as an opportunity is during the 2nd year, there's Project Homeless program that's in Memphis. All the homeless population have one place to go for access to free medical, dental, and optometry is also included. So our 2nd year students do those opportunities. 3rd year, they have 3 days a week where they're assigned to see patients in the clinic. And then 4th year, there's 3 rotations. There's summer, fall, and spring. One of those rotations will be on our campus. One rotation will be a private practice extern site, and one will be an institutional extern site. The extern sites are all over the country. If they want to come back to Idaho, they can. If they want to go to Alaska, they can. If they want to go to Florida, not this week, but maybe next week. If they want to go to Florida, they can. We have over 100 extern sites. So when they're choosing which extern sites they go to, that's going to help dictate if they're seeing 20. If they're interested in something very specialized like vision therapy, they might go into a site that doesn't have as many encounters that's more specialized. But if they're interested in something like ocular disease, they choose a VA hospital. They're going to see patients nonstop while they're there. So they're going to have a little bit of stay, but they can expect to see quite a few patient encounters by the time they graduate. So it's not just about the cost of tuition, it's also about the cost of where you go to school too. And Memphis, I'm not sure if any of you have been to Memphis before, but Memphis is a southern city. And the two things that we really focus our energy on is music and food. So you think about Memphis, you think about Elvis, you think about barbecue. There's a lot more different kinds of food. My favorite restaurants are not even the barbecue. So there's a lot of things to do. So when students come there, it's not just the opportunity to go to school, but also enjoy life too. And there's a lot of fun things. We have a good sports environment. We're very supportive of our NBA team. A lot of concerts, we have plays, ton of museums, National Civil Rights Museums there too. But we also focus on where in Memphis. And the next slide kind of focuses on the areas of town that our students live in and the cost. Memphis is usually among the most affordable cities in the country to live in, which makes it very affordable to go to SCO. And because it's so affordable, we don't have on-campus housing. This is Mud Island, and that's where about 65% of our students live. It's right on the Mississippi River. It's a very nice area. It's about 10 minutes from our campus with the heaviest of traffic you can get, because Memphis is not like Salt Lake City or any of the major cities like that. It's got traffic and it's not congested like that. So it's very, very well organized. But with so many students living there and so close to campus, you see a lot of students doing a lot of studying and things of that nature. On the next slide, we'll talk a little bit about the different opportunities. So because we don't have on-campus housing, we do have a lot of resources to help students, and living on campus, living in apartments is one of the biggest options for our students to take advantage of. But you can also find houses. We're in the Midtown area, our campus is, which is less than 5 minutes from the Central Gardens area, which is with historic homes. You can live in very nice homes. Some of the houses actually have guest houses in the back, and students are able to actually find those and rent that. The condos, Mud Island's going to be the most popular, but we also have a lot of students that live in Midtown, which is where our campus is. And a lot of our married students like to live in northern Mississippi. It's about a 15-20 minute drive to campus, but it's closer to conveniences like grocery stores and things like that. So they find that. Now our tuition rates there, if any of the students come from the states that are listed, they would have an opportunity for a regional. Those seats are limited. Arkansas, for example, the first 5 students from Arkansas each year that are accepted are going to be the ones to get the regional tuition. And what that means is that they pay $20,738 this year, because Arkansas picks up the other $18,300. So that's basically how the contracts work. But after the first 5, if there's 10 students from Arkansas, the other 3 would pay the non-regional tuition too. The number one question I get with tuition is, after my first year at SCO, can I pay the in-state tuition? We're a private school, we don't have in-state tuition. The students from Tennessee get that amount because they're a resident of that state as they enter the program, so they can't change residency for tuition purposes. However, the next slide will show a little bit about the scholarship opportunities. And we have a lot. We have out of 133 students that are currently in our first year class, 87 of them received scholarships. And the average amount per student was just under $9,000 per year. And these are 4-year scholarships. So it would be $36,000 total for them over the 4 years. But the scholarships range anywhere from $1,000 to $20,000 per year. We do have one full tuition scholarship that's awarded to each class for an underrepresented minority. And that's relatively new. We're on our 3rd year now. So as you can see, average GPA and OAT scores are a little bit higher for that, but we also focus on things like service and leadership. So when we award scholarships, they don't apply for them. Once they're accepted, they're automatically considered, and we use their application for admission. So just encourage the students to include everything on their application that they've been involved in since high school, not including high school. So if they went on a mission trip, or if they've been involved in different student organizations or community projects, they will list everything on there, because those are the things we're looking at especially for those $10,000 to $20,000 scholarships. Last thing I'll say about scholarships is that the $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 scholarships are going to go to students that come from this part of the country or areas that we don't have contracts with. The students that are coming from the states that have the contracts, they're getting contracts, so they don't need another $20,000 on top of that. We try to make it as affordable for as many students as possible. So, all right, so as you can see, we do get students from all over the country. We currently have students from 45 states in Canada and China. So we don't care where the students come from, we just want the best students. Only about 12% of each entering class comes from the state of Tennessee, so not a huge number. Being a private school, we don't have the state of Tennessee saying you have to fill this quota with Tennessee residents. We do get the largest number of applicants by far from Tennessee, but we also want the best students, so we don't care where they come from. So that's one aspect that's able to draw students to us. I know, I don't remember. Okay, sorry, I don't remember what comes after that. So moving on to the application process. Application, this is our profile for our current first year class. The earlier profile I showed you of all of the schools together. That's last year's entering class data. ASCO's currently working on the 2022 data. I expect another 2 to 3 weeks it will be available. If you want that, you can always find it on our website too. Actually, our website has a lot of information if you're ever looking for something and you can't find it, though you can call me. But average GPA for in class usually around 3.6, average OAT score usually around 3.30. We do recommend students when they take the OAT, if they score below a 3.10 on the academic average, they should retake the test. If they have a 300, they might be competitive with a strong GPA and the scores are pretty consistent. 300 is the lowest score we've accepted in about 25 years. So not saying that won't change, but those are pretty much competitive against the class itself. So optometry admissions test is an official test that all the schools use. Well, all the schools have been using for about 30 plus years. I think Indiana University is the only optometry school that doesn't require a test, an entrance test. We have a strong preference for the OAT, but as you can see, it's $505. It's quite expensive. One thing I always tell students is that it's $505 if you register for one school, and it's $505 if you register for 23 schools. So just register for all 23. It's not until they submit their Optom application that they decide which schools they're applying to. So it just saves them money if they just put all of them down. Application deadline for SEO is March 1st, which means they also have to have all of their, including their test scores, completed. When COVID happened and all the testing centers shut down, we started looking at alternative options for our students for the application process. Students that have stronger GPA, typically we're looking for a 3.5 or higher overall GPA. They can submit either the MCAT or the GRE. If they are a non-science major and they're using the GRE, we're probably going to ask them to take an OET just because it doesn't test sciences. If they've taken a lot of prereqs at a community college, we're probably going to ask them to take the OET just because we don't see the same quality. Not saying that's the case for all schools across the country, but a lot of times. So the GRE is our least preferred, but the MCAT is pretty similar to the OET. It's just a little bit different scoring system and we've got a little bit more material on it. Basically, we're looking for the MCAT to be a 125 or higher in each of the sub-scores, so 500 or higher. And then the GRE is a 150 or higher in each score with a 300 and higher total on that too. And again, 3.5 GPA or higher is what we're looking basically. So OptoMCAS is the first step for applications every year. It opens around July 1st each year. They have a tendency to open a day or two before that deadline. This year it opened June 30th. Every school, like I said, is going to have a different deadline. Ours is March 1st, but we're on rolling admissions. We start interviewing about a month after applications open. So when we're awarding scholarships too, especially if the students are interested in scholarships, I would encourage them to apply. I tell them to apply in July and August before they head back to school in the fall. That way they don't have to worry about doing the essay when they're presenting for class. So
That's exactly what they're told.
that's what I like here. You're seeing things the way I do too.
Yep.
So essay, transcript, letters of recommendation, always submit to Optometry. Essay is usually something that keeps students from getting everything in because they focus too much on it. I always tell them find one person, not five, to review it with you because 5 people will give you editing and then you just get confused. So official transcripts, even if their grades show up on their transcripts here, if they have courses dual enrollment in high school or transferred or something, they have to have each transcript sent to Optometry. And then letters of recommendation, we only require 2 at SEO. One must come from a pre-health advising office, committee letter, or they can use a professor who teaches biology, chemistry, physics, or the hard sciences like that. And then 1 letter must come from a optometrist with whom they've worked or shadowed, but they're not related. So that's one of the things about optometry. We see a lot of 2nd, 3rd, and 4th generation students because their families have been so happy with it, they want to carry on. And they have to have a letter of recommendation from someone they're not related to. That we require to, Optometry will accept up to 4. We'll look at anything they send, just make sure that those 2 are included if they do send 4. And then supplemental applications on our website, it takes 5 minutes. It's very short, no essay, nothing like that, just some questions that we don't capture in Optometry. So once they get everything submitted to Optometry, they get the transcript verified. Optometry changes their status to verified. They've asked all of the optometry schools not to invite anyone for an interview until their status is verified. Once they're verified, if they have their test scores and their supplementals and everything else in, they can be considered for an interview. Like I said, we start interviewing about a month after Optometry opens. So in early August, and then we interview through the month of March. When we invite someone in for an interview, we send them a link to a calendar that shows them all the dates that are available at that time. They're invited in September. I highly recommend not waiting till November because scholarships are gone by then usually. So definitely a lot of advantages of getting things in early. They come in for the interview. Our day has changed this year. We're doing a few new things. So the whole day in our interview process at SCO is a little bit longer, but we pack a lot into that day. We start at 8:30. So most of our interviews are Fridays. So they start at 8:30. 8:30, we start with a counseling session. There's 2 groups. They may do these in different order, but the counseling session would be someone in the admissions office going over their application file, making sure their letters of recommendation are there and they know that they're still missing microbiology or whatever it is they may be missing. And then it's also just an opportunity to ask questions and get to know each other. That usually is about a 15-20-minute meeting. After that, they go into an interview with 1 faculty member who knows their name and their home state. And this year we started putting their alma maters on their name badging, so they know that too. But that's it. They don't have access to anything in the file. So if they made a C in biochem, they don't know that. They don't know what the letters of recommendation say. So they're really there to get to know what led them to optometry, what their career goals are, what kind of experiences they've had shadowing. But it is a 2-way street. They're there to interview us, and those interviews are about 45 minutes to an hour, and it's just a conversation basically. After the interview, then they go on a tour of the campus, and we let one of our 2nd or 3rd year students do a tour. And that way they have the opportunity not only to see the facilities, but also ask a lot of questions too, and what it's like to be a student there. And then after the interview, we have lunch, and with lunch, we have the financial aid office talking about student loans, debt management, all the financial questions. And we have some students there talking about where they live, how much it costs, if they're looking for roommates, it kind of gives them some insight on how to find roommates. And after that, there's a company in Memphis called Backbeat Tours. We've hired them. They take the group onto a tour of the city of Memphis. So they're not just seeing the campus, they're actually seeing where the students live and the fun things to do. The fun thing about Backbeat Tours is that their tour guide is actually a singer, and so they'll sing popular songs along the way as you're on the bus. So it makes it a little bit more fun too. And then after that, they have the opportunity to sit in on a class just to see what the classroom setting's like and how the structure is. And then from there, we kind of wrap the day up. So they're usually there from 8:30 in the morning until about 4 in the afternoon. And about a week after they've interviewed, they usually hear from us, especially if they're interviewing in the fall. It take a little bit longer in the spring because we don't have many seats left. But if they're interviewing in fall, they usually hear back within a week. And if they're accepted before October 1st, they have 8 weeks to make their decision. October, November, December, they have 5 weeks, and after the new year, it just gets less and less time as we get closer to filling the class, basically. So a lot of benefits from applying early. The next slide, I think, kind of gives you a few just application tips that I'll talk to them about. I always tell them to meet with the people they want to write their letters of recommendation in the spring, because they're not always easy to find in the summer when they're submitting their applications. And especially if they're shadowing, we like to see them shadow at least 3 different optometrists in 3 different offices. That way they're seeing a variety of different experiences. And so getting additional experience, if they spend about 10 to 15 hours in 3 different offices, that gives them about 30 to 45 hours, which is a good foundation of what we're looking for. And then the professionalism, one of the things that's become a lot more common over the past 5 or 6 years, it started right before COVID, was people scheduling interviews and just not showing up. And when that happens, there's actually a notice that goes out to all of the schools. So it's to their best interest to stay in communication. If they're invited to interview in a school and they don't want to go, tell them to email that school and let them know I'm withdrawing my application. If they've scheduled an appointment and they're not going to go, they need to withdraw as soon as they know, so it opens it up for someone else. If they're accepted at a school and they decided to go to another school, don't just let the deadline pass. They want to make sure that they're being proactive and letting them know I'm decided to decline this offer. And that's healthy because optometry is a small profession and they know each other. Doctors across the country know each other. And they may decide that that's not the school they want to go to, but they may want to do a residency 4 years later. They may want to be part of the faculty a few years later. So, just keeping those communication channels are open and asking questions of all the doctors they shadow as well as the schools. My contact information, you should have a business card in each packet. I found one last night that didn't, but if you don't, you have all that contact information. But if anyone ever has questions, feel free to reach out to your school. Are there any benefits? Yeah.
Maddie, Charles, do you have any questions for Sunnie?
Nope.
No? Okay.
I was that good.
So some typical questions that I hear from students, you answered a lot of them in your presentation, so I appreciate that. I think probably one of the biggest questions is why do you think your students choose to be optometrists? Like, what are some of the common reasons why students choose to be optometrists?
Good question. A lot of the students have evaluated different health professions by shadowing, and they just didn't feel that connection to patient care. And with optometrists, you see them, especially if they're in primary care or private practice or something like that, they spend a lot more time with their patients and they're able to develop those relationships. They know their patients when they come back from time to time. So that's one of the primary reasons. For women, it's a great profession because it's easier to work 9 to 5 hours if you have family. You're not a lot of there is on-call, but it's not a lot. It's not going to be like an ER or something. You're not going to see pediatrician type ER on-call duties. But so those are some of the common ones. But also just being able to own your private practice, set your hours, and still have a life outside. And there's actually a campaign with optometry that focuses on the fact that optometry has life outside of the profession. They're able to do something they really enjoy. They see their patients. They're able to see instant improvement usually when they come in for their appointments. So they have a lot of self-gratification there. I haven't seen the ratings in the past couple of years, but for a long time, optometry was rated the profession with the lowest divorce rate of all the healthcare providers. So, but it's not invasive in some manners. It's not like the blood and guts kind of thing. And sometimes patients aren't that interested. They're not interested in doing surgery. We've had several students in my 22 years that have gone to med school had 4.0s in med school, but knew that the competition for ophthalmology was very competitive and they knew they wanted to work with vision. So they withdrew from med school and gained optometry school. So it's not a matter of that it's a lesser profession than med school. It's just what it is that they feel like is a better fit for them.
So how much more competitive is ophthalmology school than optometry school?
Well, ophthalmology would go to med school, and then after med school is when you do the matching process, is when they decide. And ophthalmology is one of the more competitive ones because there's not a great number of ophthalmology residencies down there. You may know more about that since I don't deal with med school very